Hello, everybody. Namaskar. Yes, happy to be back with you again. I'm Tanaya, joining you live from Bangalore. Well, thank you for all the love and affection that you have showered on this Cradle Facebook page and the initiative as such. And I would request my dear audience that if you are liking our sessions, please do continue with your comments, likes, shares. I think it is your feedback which keeps us going, which keeps us motivated, and definitely would help us with our global outreach. So thank you so much. In Cradle sessions, as a part of all the fireside chats that we do in this platform, we have tried to explore answers to questions that have always perplexed the human mind, have always confused the human mind. We have taken topics that are related to life and growth. Nature versus nurture has been a debate which has been running for ages now. We have always wondered whether what plays the most important role in human development, in human behavior, whether it is the kind of genes that we all carry or it is the environment in which we are brought up, whether these are factors which are internal to us or factors which are outside of our system, external factors, so to say. There have been a lot of research, lot of thoughts, lot of theories on the subject of nature versus nurture. And we ourselves, as a part of the Cradle session, have tried, I must say, to touch upon this subject in bits and pieces in almost all our sessions, if you remember. But we thought this time we would try to go a little bit deeper into the subject. And that's why the topic of today's discussion is nature versus nurture. And to engage in a conversation with me today, I again have a very, very special guest. May I please have him on my screen? Yes, dear audience, right there on your screen, you are able to see my esteemed guest today, introducing you to Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra. Uh, well, uh, the introduction, lovely credentials to his credit. But he is the secretary, Department of Agricultural Research and Education, Government of India. Dr. Mahapatra is the Director General of the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Dr. Mahapatra has over 200 publications. Well, that's a very hoping number in various reputed national and international journals, and also several book chapters to his name. He is an esteemed fellow of different institutes of repute and has been conferred the honorary doctorate degree by 9 different universities. While the entire career of Dr. Mahapatra has been very, very illustrious, one highlight I thought I would share with you, my dear audience, is that in the 50th year of Indian independence, the reputed The Week magazine identified him as one of the 50 emerging stars of India. Well, we are privileged to have the star himself with us today in this forum. Thank you, Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra, for joining us today. Well, the topic, as I called out right at the onset, is nature versus nurture. Well, when we talk about nature, we essentially mean genetics. We mean the science of inheritance. You have been working in this field, Mr. Mahapatra, for quite some time. So, what do you think is the role that nature or genetics plays in the way of shaping us as individuals?
Thank you very much. Nature, as you have already explained, certainly every one of us have some or other traits natural to us, and some total of all that we get from our parents through the genetic material, that is DNA, that gives us this set of or array of traits for which we all are known, we all are characterized by. So the genetics, the science of heredity and variation, as it was defined, in fact deals with these aspects, that is the nature, and in fact very well explains how our genes, which are carried there in the chromosomes, explain or express our various traits. And if I go back to the foundation of genetics, which was laid by Gregor Johann Mendel while working on pea, based on the flower color and various other traits and their inheritance pattern in generations after making a hybrid using two pure lines, pure parental lines. So in that, he saw a pattern which is emerging in terms of the morphology, which we call phenotypic trait. And as a mathematician, he applied those principles and then very clearly demonstrated and concluded that there are factors or genes or elements in the chromosomes and which control the expression of the traits. In fact, some of these were not known at that time, that they are carried on chromosomes or they are genes and all that. They were done later. But in his paper, he describes them as elements. And but the pattern of gene behavior during meiosis and the pattern of trait behavior in subsequent generations to a hybrid generation, and that was later taken to assign genes on the chromosomes. To sum it up, that gene, by way of its expression, controls the traits and expression of the traits in a way the nature as we inherit is determined by the genes that we have inherited from our parents. So in case of human, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. So, so when I say pair, half of it comes from mother, half of it comes from a father. So it becomes 23 pairs. So in all of us. So and then in various forms, they can be combined while they are coming from the parents. Reshuffling might take place. So two of the children or three of the children may not look similar unless they are monozygotic twins. So that is how the genes influence our behavior, our character, the way we shape, and all that. So nature, as you said, that all that which we are inheriting in the form of our genes and all total of our genes constituting our nature, and that by of expression controlling the traits.
Sure, thank you so much. So, what you are saying is, if I try to sum it up in a very layman's language, is that our nature is essentially the sum total of our traits, which we get from our parents, and even our parents getting it from their parents. And you talked about the genes are the carriers of those, and by the way it expresses itself, and that's how it comes and sits on us as our traits. And you also talked about how uh, uh, in humans also, how the chromosomes, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes, half coming from the mother, half coming from the father, and how it all comes, pairs up together to form the way we are. While there are shuffling happens in the way that even siblings are different in their traits, but then obviously essentially some part of it are coming in from our parents, and that's how the permutation combinations leads to different traits, behaviors that are expressed by us. It was very interesting to note when you said about the P experiment, because I think this experiment is so famous that we have all learned about it in our school. Okay, so good to hear about it again. I think we will get to know about more such experiments as we move forward with our discussion today, Dr. Mahapatra. So on one side, we have nature influencing us. Now, the kind of discussion we just have in response to my first question. But then on another side, we have the external factors or the environment, which is playing a role. In fact, there are theories like the black slate theory, or what we call the tabula rasa, wherein many researchers, many psychologists told us that it's all in the environment. The environment can completely take charge and shape individuals. So, what do you think is the impact of environment on us?
Okay, so it's a good question. So, when I say Mendel's experiment, Mendel fortunately or whatever intelligently chose traits which were showing very clean and clear segregation pattern, and which he described very as a mathematician in the form of ratios, 3:1 and whatever, and the two genes, three genes, and combinations. He explained those ratios very nicely. Because the traits, for instance, flower color, so there was a clear segregation between two alternate forms of the flower color. So these are called Mendelian traits, simply inherited traits, which are not influenced much by the environment in which the plant grows. So they are not really influenced so much. And largely very little effect. There are some such traits, they do get influence, and penetrance and expressivity, there are two terms which describe variable expression of those monogene control, single gene control traits. There are situations, but largely they remain unaffected. But most of our traits, as we show up and demonstrate and express, so they are controlled by many genes. So they are called polygenic or quantitative in nature. So such traits are influenced by environment to a great extent. And that's the reason why we use a term called heritability. To what extent the trait is inherited, and the environmental impacts are there, and that also can be quantified. If it is 60% heritable or 70% heritable or even 50% heritable. So what extent environment influences? So in such characters, for instance, even of plant height, you do find seed size or many traits in human. They are quantitative in nature, so many genes control expression of those traits, and as a result, they show a continuous variation. So a discrete variation, in case of qualitative traits, Mendelian traits, but these traits show continuous variation. So to further sharpen it, I say that they're all basic fundamental science in textbooks, that the most of our traits are quantitative in nature, and they are influenced by environment. And that's the reason why this nature versus nurture, that particular concept came into existence. In fact, Francis Galton, the scientist who used this particular phrase, for the first time. And there were two groups which were actually trying to establish their dominance. One group strongly believing that everything that we have is inherited from our parents, and whatever changes happen there through evolution, and Darwinian theory talks about it, and we get those changes in us, so it's purely genetic. The nature controls everything. But there was another group which was again at the other extreme and arguing very forcefully that it's all nurture, and because there are traits which are greatly diluted when they are actually in different environments, the individual in different environments. So that's probably led the group to believe that it mostly environment control. So its nurture was more powerful than the nature. So, but it's fact that we inherit. Many traits don't get influenced by environment, but large number of traits do get influenced by environment. So we cannot just do away with the environmental influence on us. So we have to accept this fact that environment does have influence on expression.
Absolutely. So what you were saying is that there are some genes, the Mendelian genes, I think you talked about, which cannot be influenced, but then another set of genes which definitely can be influenced by the environment or the external factors around us. And you mentioned about Francis Galton, who first worked on this, and in fact he was the person who coined the term nature versus nurture. And interestingly, he was the cousin of Charles Darwin himself.
Yeah.
To give an example, and I have read about it, I may be wrong. You please correct me, Mr. Mohapatra. Two experiments, which were done. One, with respect to, they they experimented on a set of individuals who are born to families where parents, grandparents, everybody are tall. Okay, so naturally they inherited qualities of being tall, but when they were exposed to environment of where they were not nourished enough, so the nourishment was not there, not exposed to a healthy environment, so it was seen that the genes which actually led them to become tall was getting influenced, and those individuals in the next generations were not getting taller. So this is one experiment which I read about, and then another one which says that there is another distinct feature. Sometimes there are some individuals who have a very sharp sense of the pitch of music, okay, and it runs in families, okay, that musical sense. But then in early years, if you are not exposing those individuals to the right set of trainings, it seems like in later years they lose that particular sense. So those were some two experiments that I read about, wherein it shows that while the characteristics or the traits do get passed on through genes, but then if the right environment is not there, those genes get subdued or get influenced, and then you get a different result or an outcome altogether. So while you talked about, Mr. Mohapatra, on how both nature and nurture has an influence on us, and you also talked about that more and more it has become prominent that nurture or environment has a very, very strong influence. So this brings to my next question: that can nature be changed by nurture? If so, how? And in fact, you were hinting on that. I just want to go a little more, deeper in the subject, and want to, hear more from you on this.
Okay, so that's a very difficult question, but I'll try to simplify and answer it, to the best possible manner. See, whatever genes we receive from our parents, it does get changed. It gets changed, over a period of time, over generations. In nature, it might accumulate some changes in the genetic material, and particularly in case of plants, because they are propagated through seeds, they have to thrive for generations in nature. So in case of animal system as well, over a 1,000 year period, a long period if we take into account. So that's the point variation comes in. So we do accumulate those changes in our genetic material. So also we can change, over a period of a long period of time. It could be relatively shorter in case of individuals or species where the life cycle is shorter, and then there are frequent generations appearing. So you might accumulate changes faster. But in case of individuals who live for a long period, so 100 years, 50 years, and all that, it takes very long period for accumulation of such changes over generations. So that is true, that they can accumulate changes, and that's the part of a variation, which is very much part of genetics. So, but if one individual is there which has who has or inherited already, or whatever genes or genetic material he or she, from the parents, how do we really change that in the same generation? So, or does it get changed? So, the recent science says that it can be changed. So, there are different concepts. I will explain one of those, which is called epigenetics. So, epi means over, outside, and so it is actually a layer over the genes. So genes have their own nature, sequence, and characteristics. So you have 4 nucleotides, A, T, G, C, and there are sequence in the various patterns. But then they have not changed. But what is changed is that there are modifications directly in the DNA itself, in the gene sequence, modification introduced, or it's getting more complicated, but then simply to simplify it, or in the associated kind of chemicals. For instance, DNA wraps around a protein called histone, and histone protein together constitute chromatin or chromosome, and the histone can also be modified. And similarly, there are small RNA species which can also bring out such changes. So what I'm telling, that these changes now is established can happen during the lifetime, and those changes can bring modification in our gene expression. So that is how our differentiation happens. From a single cell, we all become so different individuals with differentiation of different organs by way of differential expression of our genes. And that happens because there's a mechanism to have differential expression introduced through development. And our antibody generation, millions of antibodies or every individual faces in lifetime. But that's a different complicated story, but I'll simplify it, that there, during development, there could be alterations in the gene itself, a DNA sequence itself, and bringing in various forms of protein, which are called antibodies. So there is a developmental alteration that takes place, rearrangement that takes place. So that's a different mechanism. So there are mechanisms during our lifetime which can lead to such alterations, and in the process, bringing in differentiation in one individual, and also bringing in variety of changes in our behavior pattern, or even thinking process, or even our habits. So there could be such changes happening. And so the science, in fact, talks about it, now. So there are various implications of this, and I'll come back to all these and sum up in a, citing what our my spiritual master talks about, and how all these are happening and what actually is important. So I'll stop there.
Sure. So very, very interesting. I think there is a subtle science behind everything. We sometimes see it at on a surface level and keep on wondering. But when we look deeper and look at the subtle science, I think it only increases our amazement to how lovely things are around us, and especially epigenetics. I think this is something which I have heard for the first time, wherein you were saying that may not be in the DNA itself, but there are layers on the top of DNA. There are chemicals, there are proteins which also combines, and where you can bring the modifications and which can
And,
bring
and,
about
and,
changes.
and that's the reason why twins, which are monozygotic, they come from a single zygote. They have the same genetic material. So if they're in different environments and differently groomed, and the environment plays very profound, have a very profound influence on them, and they may have different diseases, and then may have different behavior. So we always believe that they will be 100% identical. Identical means they're 100% similar, but that may not happen. And there are plenty of such examples where monozygotic twins are not identical.
Sure, great. So I think wonderful, and I'm more interested. Maybe going forward, we will hear how our spiritual master Shishi Thakur he has talked about that subject, and many times science and spirituality do meet and do talk about same thing. And in fact, in one of our cradle sessions, we had a very beautiful discussion on this, on how science and spirituality converge. Sometimes we are not able to understand, but when we delve deeper, we really see those converging points. So interested to know about it more as we move forward. So what we essentially understood so far is that yes, both nature and nurture, the external factors as well as the genes that we carry, have an influence, have an impact on the way, on how we develop or how we grow. So now, again, I'm again and again coming back to the same question, because this is what the topic is: which is more important, nature or nurture? And an added question to that is, can the qualities which we acquire through nurture become the nature of our future generations?
Okay, so I'll put it this way, that nature and nurture both are important. It's not really nature versus nurture. It's actually nature and nurture which are very, very important for us. Uh, So one side, we have to have appropriate genetic constitution of ours and inherited, through whatever mechanism, and then also have proper nurture to really that particular individual traits to express. So both are important. That's what I said, and I repeat. But it's not that we cannot change those. And as I said, we can change. So there are various ways and means to really change them. But I will take you to what Sisi Thakur has said, that in the form of various modifications in our behavior and the way we live, the way we do things, and we can change many things. Let me say at this point, very important thing, that if we want to have a better human being, certainly it has to start from the marriage. And from there, we can get a better nature, better genetics, and a more robust genetics there. And so that genetically, inherently, we are better human beings. And in case of plants, we do make selection of the parents, and then go for appropriate crossing. And in fact, we do study compatibility, and we call them combining abilities. And those combining abilities, specific, general, we categorize them and then select parents which could be of use. And by using those parents, we can create heterotic hybrids which can give us very high performance in terms of yield, in terms of resistance to stresses, and so on and so forth. So that is what is actually important to note. And so also in case of animals, we do select a right kind of bull, a right kind of mother, and in the process, go for progenies, which would be better, higher yielding, and so on and so forth. So this is what is actually very, very important to note. So if we want to have better nature or more robust nature, and that nature in terms of genetic constitution can survive and pass through all the adversities, and then have that kind of expressions to be realized. So certainly that's very important. But at the same time, the environment also has a tremendous influence, as we have already discussed. And Sisi Thakur also, in his numerous, kind of banis, have explained that how important these two aspects are. And in the message, he says that bad seed in good soil sprouts with vigorous badness, and diminishing the attributes with pungency. And good seed in bad soil, which is not compatible with the nurturing element of the seed, loses its inherent specification with its physical attributes too. So always keep seed and soil within compatible keep, by which growth is enhanced with good glare. And that's what is very, very important, that we have to certainly take care of the seed, that is the progeny, and through proper marriage system. And at the same time, we must provide compatible, excellent environment. If we don't provide, nutritious, soil system, and we don't provide water, don't provide air or sunlight, certainly a good seed cannot germinate into a big banyan tree. And a small seed can give us a big banyan tree only when that kind of environment is provided. So that's as simple. And Sisi Thakur has given this concept long ago, and that's what is actually explained by this particular expression. And that's what he says. And he warns actually, he says further, a hypergamous marriage is the elixir of life, whereas a hypogamous marriage is deterioratingly destructive. So it's a highly destructive. And if we go for hypogamous marriage, I'll not really go on describing all this in detail, but these are all kind of signs, and what has been so eloquently described by our spiritual guide, Sisi Thakur Anukul Chandra. Though, in the current, situation in the society, this aspect is actually not really seriously taken and considered. And as a result, we might lead to non-robust progenies, improper progenies. Destruction might be brought in the process, as it has been said. So to have good genetics, we have to have good marriage. And as Thakur says, it has to be hypergamous marriage. But that's not really enough. So there are various other things. How should be the mother? What way her thoughts should be? How should be the father? And various other their behaviors and what all are required to have a good progeny, so well described in Marriage Reformation, a book of Sisi Thakur. So I'll not go to that. So you need to have a good seed, and as I said, that as Thakur said, that you also need to have a good compatible environment, and without that, the potential which is there in the seed would not express the progeny, even if it's good genetics. So it may not be able to give us that what we need. So that's what I say. So both are important. So gene is important, nature is important, nurture is important, and without that, there could be some alterations. And in fact, let me tell you a recent example which was published by Perla Kaliman and from Center for Healthy Minds, University of Wisconsin Madison, published in Brain, Behavior, and Immunity in 2020. And there, the effect of meditation has been studied, and that shows that how the NF kappa B, which is upregulated under stress and causes inflammation, and can be actually managed and by way of meditation, and in the process, the stress induced inflammation can be minimized or completely eliminated by way of meditation. And so that is another aspect, that how environment can actually help us. That's what Thakur has said in many ways, and I'll come back to this point a little later. So I'll stop here, telling that both nature and nurture are crucial for us to express ourselves, manifest our hidden talents, the latent traits which are there, the potential which is remaining latent in each one of us can manifest only when we have that kind of environment to express what we have inherited. And if you want better inheritance, better genes, then we need to go for appropriate marriage.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. I think we are learning a lot today. And for my audience, I think we always in our cradle sessions we talk about that we as humans are born with immense potential, but then to unleash that potential, I think the right blend of nature and nurture is very, very important. And I think that is what Dr. Mohapatra is trying to tell
Yes.
us today. And since Dr. Mohapatra, you touched upon marriages and the compatibility factor, which is important in marriages. If you look, if I go back, and you mentioned about Francis Galton also when you started, he had told, because he was a great proponent of the nature impacting how we are. He had told in one of his research that intelligent individuals should marry and produce more children for a better progeny ahead. Well, that was a very controversial statement at that point in time. A lot of research happened, but he did. The person who coined the very term nature versus nurture, he himself told that intelligent individuals should marry and produce more children, which itself shows that people who are intelligent coming together. And while Sri Thakur has talked about the compatibility aspect of it and stressed more on that aspect, but I thought just to connect it to the work of the great psychologist himself.
Yeah.
So good, I think interesting way we are moving, and this brings me, as you are telling, again and again, that the right blend of nature, nurture, both are important. It is not one versus the other. It is not that one has an upper hand over the other. What can we do? What can we do to best leverage both nature and nurture to create a better society? Dr. Mohapatra.
Okay, I think this is very, very important because what the society needs. Society needs at the time of independence, since Thakur said so eloquently, that before independence, that what is this independence? It's only transfer of power. So independence requires human beings. Unless you have a man with character, so who would actually help the society to grow, to sustain, and to be nourished? And who can provide leadership to the country? The leaders without ideal, cannot be, providing the right kind of leadership, and they cannot nurture the society. So obviously we need that kind of genetics, which would be, at the forefront of sacrifice, at the forefront of all human traits and values, demonstrated, manifested, and the kind of society, which we all think about. But we forget that that's a very big role for all of us to play by way of bringing good children to this earth. So unless we follow those principles of marriage, and as outlined, as very vividly described, and in fact, Sri Thakur is probably the prophet who has so elaborately described the marriage system reformation. And we had, about the hypergamous and hypogamous marriage systems and all that described earlier as well. But Thakur has brought that very scientifically and elaborated in many forms and gone beyond just having a particular marriage and what should be, as I said, the kind of female and male, the union, and where, how they should unite, and what should be their thought process, and how the ideal centric they should be to have proper progeny. So that is one way that if we want to really have a society, ideal society, and the so-called Ramarajya, so we can't have that unless we resort to marriage reformation and we have right progeny born. But then those who are already born, or for all future purposes, we have to also at the same time nurture the environment. See, Thakur has said this in many ways, and in fact, I don't want to really take more time and talk about it. But then, since Thakur has said, if I have to say a few things before us, before all of us, those who are followers of Sri Thakur, the spiritual master of all of us, he has very clearly instructed us, warned us, and advised us at many places throughout. And in Satyanusaran, The Pursuit of Truth, that small book that he wrote at the age of 22 in one night, and very clearly tells us, advises us, that take to the feet of a true master. Go on taking the holy name and remain in the company of the devout. Truly I say, you have no more to worry for your elevation. See, if at the individual level, if we think of our own benefit, our own elevation, our own happiness and peace in life, certainly, this is how we can modify our environment, our immediate environment in surrounding myself or ourselves and in our family, and in the process, invite all happiness and have all kinds of elevations, and particularly to enter the spiritual world and have that spiritual bliss, or realized in our lives. And that is what Sister Thakur has said and emphasized, that how we can have a better environment. As I say, as I understand, that we have inner environment, we have outside external environment. The inner environment requires quite a bit of adjustments. Unless we adjust our inner environment, we may not be able to actually manage ourselves. As I was telling, that through meditation, there are evidences that we can reduce the stress, and in the process reduce those kind of genes which are being expressed, and causing in the process inflammation. Since Thakur has very clearly instructed us, and that's long before these experiments are done, that we have to take to the holy names and go on taking the holy names, repeating the holy names, and remain in the company of the devout. That is satsang. So we have to really attend satsang, be there in satsang, so that this environment in groups, of devout satsangis, that can actually help us to build ourselves. Our own thinking process can get altered, and our environment, by way of association with other devout, followers, that life can get altered, and in the process we can modify our inner world. Our thinking process gets altered, and in the process, by way of this repetition of holy name, we can actually do many things. And that is what this Thakur has said, because vibration is so powerful. And by meditation, we create that sound, and that sound creates vibration. And this Thakur says that the thrill of vibration, audible or inaudible, can correct many maladjustments in tissues with their inner current. Then he goes on to say that that thrill of vibration can destroy them, all the maladjustments, in a very concerted way, and in the process lead us to have adjustments in many ways, in various diverse rhythms, with molecular or monopolar or multipolar magnetic thrust. Can you imagine the kind of science that Sister Thakur has given us and explained? And at that point in time, we know how much Sister Thakur studied, and in which class he studied, and kind of understanding he had, the deeper insight, the kind of perception he had about matter, about energy, and about particularly the magnetism. He also talks about the magnetism which is created in the hemoglobin, and hemoglobin carries iron, and it also creates that kind of magnetic force. That was understood much later, and that's the kind of explanations Thakur gives. But to come back to the point which we are describing, that if we want to really correct ourselves and destroy all our maladjustments in our tissues, in our lives, in within, and in the process have a better thinking and better concentration and realization of God, which is quite tough, and have happiness in life. All that is possible if we can have adjustments of our complexes, which pull us in various directions, and in the process complicate our life. In the process, we only suffer. We don't see happiness, and that's what is actually important to take home. And that's the reason why Sister Thakur has so clearly, instructed us, advised us that we should be taking to the holy name, repeating the holy name again and again, and the process in the company of devout, followers, we can have that bliss realized, and the process, we should not be worrying for our elevation. And there are many other things which Thakur has emphasized, and I believe that in our real life, if we have to really practice those, if we can practice those, and as and when we have to do and follow them in toto, probably we should be able to realize. And since I could say very many things to shape our lives, and by way of modifying the nurture component of the nature and nurture, that is very much within our reach, and very easily it can be done. Certainly it's not so easy, but there are difficulties, but still we can manage if we are ideal centric, if we are concentric, we are surrounding the ideal, we have weaving our life and then moving accordingly. So we'll be able to imbibe his values, his advices, and in the process grow. Life, just existence has no meaning. We have to grow, appropriately grow, and certainly we require that ideal centric life. And we have to have that vibration and to grow and to have adjustments to grow properly. And food is also very, very important. And since Thakur said that a person doesn't die because he is hungry without food, but he dies because he eats and eats. And that's what the science says. And recent paper published in Cell in 2020 says that the calorie restricted diet delays age-related diseases, and hence individual lives longer. And this is animal model which has been tested, and 47% of the age-related changes in normal rats were not there in calorie restricted rats. So that's the kind of experimentation which has done in 2020, and that says that limited diet and lesser food would help us to live longer. And Sis Thakur very emphatically said that and going to the science part of it, and he says that vegetable diet makes us makes up existential glow, whereas animal diet goes towards decreasing the assets of life. Very clearly, he has given this, and there are experiments which are going on, and I believe it will take years and centuries to establish scientifically what has been said. So, what I was trying to say is that the nurture component, the environmental component, can be modified, and in the form of our behavior, in our daily life, and in the form of food, whatever we take in the process, change the expression of the genes, and our thought process can be altered, our behavior can be altered. In the process, we can be happy. In the process, we can have a peaceful life. And Sis Thakur has given this so clearly. And that point in time, proteins were just known, and he says all proteins are not equally constituted, nor are they easily assimilable. So take those which are assimilable, nurturing to your constitution, compatible with your system, and which exalts your existence. So that is the kind of guidance, assurance that is given by Sisi Thakur. And if one follows those in toto, I strongly believe that the environmental component can be taken care to a great extent. As a result, the genes, even if they are not really as per our requirement or desire, so they can be to a certain extent, their expression can be modified in a better environment. In the process, we can have better living. So thank you very much. I stop here.
Thank you so much. So, two things which we are talking about for the nature component, right marriages, compatible marriages. And for those who are already born, for them, obviously, they also have an opportunity to live a better life and fulfill, do the best to their potential. And that's how, through proper nurture. And when we talk about nurture, Sri Thakur has given us so many ways, be it in the form of right food, be it in the form of right parenting, be it in the form of right education, many things. And we are touching upon these subjects in all our sessions. We did a session on education very recently, and then we will also do a session on parenting. On food, also we did a session, if you remember, on how sustainability, food habits, our health, how these things are all related. But I think the highlight of the entire thing is the message from Satyanusaran, which Dr. Mahapatra read out to us, and we always talk about this book in all our sessions. Sri Thakur wrote it at a tender age of only 22 years in the course of only one night. The holy book of Satyanusaran, or the Pursuit of Truth. In that, the message which Dr. Mahapatra talked about, I will reiterate that because that is very, very important. That is what shows us a ray of hope is take to the feet of a true master. That is ideal centricity. Have a center in your life. Have a guru in your life. Keep on taking the holy name, the Satnam, which again Dr. Mahapatra talked about, the subtle science of vibration, and be in the company of the devout. take to the feet of a true master, keep on taking the holy name, and be in the company of the devout. And Sri Thakur has told us very vehemently that if these three conditions are fulfilled, then we really do not need to worry about our elevation. And we wish and pray that all of us get elevated, move in the direction of life and growth through by following the messages, the divine messages of the spiritual master Sri Sri Thakur. Well, now it's time for some audience questions. I was seeing a lot of interesting comments coming up on the screen today. Interesting subject, I must say. Nature versus nurture has always boggled all of us, but I think it was great to hear a lot of insights today, both from the realm of science or the kind of research which is happening. You yourself being a scientist in this area, Dr. Mahapatra, and obviously, most importantly, the teachings of our beloved spiritual master, Sri Sri Thakur, on the subject. Let me please have my questions, audience questions on screen. I am not yet able to see. Okay. Okay. Mr. Manish Panjabi is asking us, what is appropriate marriage? You may please touch upon it.
Okay, so I will explain this taking one or two examples so that you would be able to appreciate this. So in case of maize, I'll explain in plants and then explain you in case of human beings. In case of maize, what happens that it's called cross-pollinated crop, as in case of human beings and animals. So because you have male and female individuals different, and a male has to be crossed with female in case of plants to get the progeny. And so also in case of animals and human beings. And some are hermaphrodite where male and female sexes are together and all that. So I'll not go into those complications. But in case of maize, what happens that you can, because in the same plant you have male flowers and female flowers at different places. So you can self-pollinate. I mean, you can take the pollen of the same plant and put on the stigma of the male flower and then get the progeny. And that's called self-pollination. And that is inbreeding. Inbreeding leads to inbreeding depression. There will be expression of many unwanted genes, lethal genes. The individual may be eliminated completely. So that might happen. So that's called inbreeding depression. So you need to cross two diverse types and two diverse types which are compatible types. If there is no compatibility, the pollen of one would not germinate on the stigma of another, so it cannot fertilize, so it will not have progeny. So compatibility doesn't happen. So no pollination, no fertilization taking place, and in the process, no progeny coming out. So these are the two cases. So what do we do there? So we do that inbreeding depression needs to be really eliminated. So in case of human beings, consanguineous marriages are not to be followed. That's the kind of same gotra marriage. Thakur has also said that same gotra marriage should be avoided. So to avoid this consanguinity and bringing of together of unwanted genes, which will play havoc in life and or destroy the traits in the progeny. So we want better progeny. So we need to have proper selection of the parents. So how do you do this in case of human? So obviously, I say the same family marriage, relative marriage, they should not be. In certain societies in India, that is followed, and in the long over evolution period, the lethal genes at times they get eliminated in the process. Though there will not be too much of outside influence coming, but whatever was there in the family that will be preserved over centuries. So, but then lethality would play its part and eliminate many things over a longer period of time. So that's the reason why it should be avoided. So good marriage or appropriate marriage is one where proper selection happens. The parental selection, I mean the male-female selection happens and appropriately chosen. And I will not go into explaining what is hypergamous marriage that's called Anulom Vibha, and you can type it out in Google and then see what is actually Anulom marriage or hypergamous marriage. But the issue is that what is the right kind of environment for a husband and wife to remain together in a very compatible fashion. So obviously there are many the cultural kind of compatibility, the social compatibility, and then there could be even other compatibilities in terms of your recent concepts of the economics. The compatibility, there could be many labels of compatibility. A is compatibility, so is your family background, your social behavior, and other aspects of the compatibility. So there is quite a bit of considerations, and they're all outlined in marriage reformation. So I'll not go into those details and then take you through number of jargons, but that is what is actually required. And if we have that, and at the same time appropriate behavior, which are ideal centric behavior, and both, and then one conceives a better progeny, and that's what all outline in Stacker's philosophy. I'll not elaborate more, so it will take a lot of time to actually go into the details. Yeah. And in case of animals, it's a similar
Any other
story.
question?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Deepak Kumar Das is asking us how nurture can elevate the concentricity in life as per scientific research.
Okay, so actually concentricity means we have one center and we are going round and round the center. We are close to the center. And those who have seen, Chucky and how the grains are actually ground using the Chucky, and that old kind of thing, that those which are close to the central kind of place, so they are saved, and those which go far from the center, so they get crushed. So that's what is concentricity. So you have to be concentric. How do you be concentric? If you have complexes pulling in six directions, you have love, lust, and pulling you in one direction, and you have anger pulling you in another direction. You have all kinds of complexes in you, and they distract you or day in and day out. So obviously that concentricity in life will not come. So, and how do we actually reduce that, in life, distractions in life, and how these complexes do not really drag you in different direction, but they are adjusted. They are adjusted, not really suppressed or removed. You can't remove them. They are required, and you have to use them judiciously. And how do we really adjust them? You can adjust them only when you take to this holy name, accept the master, and repeat the holy name, and do jajan jajan ishtabriti. I'll not go into those details. Then you will have concentricity in life. You will not have diffusion in life. You might diffuse at certain point in life if you don't really follow properly, but because you are linked, you are adhering to these principles, you will be brought back. Otherwise, what will happen? You will be walking in the dry desert, and there you will not be able to return back if you don't really have that kind of attachment with the supreme, with the ideal. If you do not have ideal centric life, so concentricity happens if you have ideal centric life, and your complexes get adjusted, and despite all your negatives that you have inherited in the form of nature, you can get all those adjusted by way of your internal environment getting purified. Thank you.
Beautiful. So I think we will take one more question before we sign off for the day. Okay, there is Swati Sarkar. If nature is treated as intelligent consciousness and genes are encoded consciousness, is it possible to impose higher intelligent level nurturing to overcome any natural shortcomings? Example, distorted habits, chronic criminal nature, etc.
I think it's a beautiful question that these consciousness, intelligent consciousness, and our genes. See, that's what I said, that genes are there, they provide the basic blueprint, and we have certain inheritance that we have. But, you know, only when we have these, internal adjustments done, we can have that intelligent consciousness building in us. In fact, Sister Thakur's, description, you all know, we all know that, we can go to nirvana, starting from ideal centric life, and then adjustment of complexes and all that is a step, a multiple steps involved there. So obviously, that intelligent consciousness can be built, provided we work through very systematically, diligently, repeatedly adjusting our inner world, and that's not easy, and it requires practice. And probably, I, as a humble mortal, I have not been able to really go to that level. I am only speaking. But Sister Thakur has very well described all these. And Sister Thakur says, inside the sun, it's cool. How he knows. And he describes atom and then electron and how they really behave. And he talks about many things. And he says, and that was my, principle when I was this and that. So he talks many things, which, these are all super consciousness, and super consciousness, and remembering what was he in the past, and what he has gone through, where all he has gone through, and in the whole cosmos, and understanding about the whole cosmos. That's a super consciousness, and we are all humble mortals. I am a humble mortal, and probably, yes, we can attain that. What extent? Bhagavan, those that all values and traits, are there. They're all hidden. So if we can actually practice, probably we'll be able to do that. So we can have, see how you can. I mean, I remember my student days when I was doing meditation, long hours. I'll just go through one page, and whole copy I can go through, and any question anybody asks, and my friend and myself, we used to compete, and within no time I used to answer anything that I have read. So I used to remember everything. So it's all, limit is set because of our ignorance. So I would say that, and our criminal nature and habits and distorted habits, all that can be actually modified. The Hemachandra Mukhopadhyay, and how his drinking habit was changed, how he was transformed. So it's all man-making factory, the satsang, and only Sisi Thakur Ankul Chandra, the super conscious human being, and can do that. That power he
Absolutely.
had to transform
And
lives.
And a very recent case study is the terrorism in Tripura,
Yeah.
I remember, and I have told it in one of the sessions, wherein I, as a child, when we used to go from my place to Tripura, we used to have those escorts, because there's so much of insurgency. But I think Thakur's philosophy of love, going and penetrating into the masses of where those insurgency was, has transformed all the so-called insurgents, and they are now, many of them have surrendered, and now they are in mainstream life. So I mean, that is how transformation happens. Okay, they might have had shortcomings for whatsoever reasons. Okay, be it genes or the way the environment they were nurtured in childhood, but we have seen the transformation happen. That means transformations are possible. So thank you so much, Dr. Mahapatra, for enlightening us today. I think we got a lot of learnings. I know you are a master of your subject, but then you tried your best to help us understand by simplifying all the concepts, so that laymen like me, we are able to understand the concepts well. And I'm sure our audience have also gained tremendously from the discussion today. So, in summary, I think what we have understood is that there's an interaction between both nature and nurture, environment and the genes, to make us the way we are. So let us not really go into the debate of which has an upper hand, whether nature or nurture. Let's not waste our energies in going for those debates. Rather, let us focus on what can be done. Okay, let us focus on how we can leverage both nature as well as nurture, okay, to unleash the full potential that we all have, which in turn will lead to creation of better societies. Thank you so much. I think Christmas is around the corner, the season of love, the season of prayers, the season of sharing, caring. We are all waiting for the holidays. And take good care of yourselves, dear all. Have a good Christmas season. Take this time to reflect. Take this time to reflect on some of the sessions which we have done, some of the teachings of different spiritual masters, prophets who have come down to earth, including the great Sri Jesus Christ. So thank you. Wish you all the best. And it's here myself, Tanaya, and Dr. Mahapatra signing off. Thank you and namaskar.